Okay, there is the cue. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Refresh. You know, this is our time to connect, be inspired, learn something, and ultimately feel a bit better for this time spent together. And as you know, that's what Generation W is all about. I have to tell you, I still continue to reel a bit. I stumble around, my mind continues to race. There's so much emotion. Our team continues to both rise and struggle together. There's triggers, there's sadness, there's anger, and yet there is hope. Every day there is hope. Hope for a brighter tomorrow, hope for progress, hope that our dreams truly do become reality. And that question that all of us not only are hearing, but the one that we are asking over and over again, is it different this time? You know what? When I think about it, and I do all the time, oh no, right? We are living that answer, right? And how we live that answer will help determine what that answer is. So we are active participants in both asking and answering that question, which I find hopeful. It gives me optimism. And I hope it does you too. Last week was an incredibly powerful refresh. I received a note this morning from a woman on the West Coast who shared that the words from each and every one of those amazing panelists, her words, have stayed with her every single day of the week. So I have to just say that the Let's Talk, Let's Listen, and Let's Heal session continues, I think, to impact all of us. And I want to once again thank Dr. Jeffrey Ann Wilder, Daryl Willey, Melinda Wolf, Dr. Olinda Johnson, and of course, our very own Stacey Ellison for their really raw, pure, authentic, and honest conversation. And of the many words that were shared, the emotions that I have captured deep within me, I love the one that Olinda shared, which is not everything we face must be changed, but not everything can be changed until it is faced, by the amazing James Baldwin. You know, thinking about change, moving hope into action does require a great deal of positivity. So who better to join us today than the nationally known Jon Gordon, who has dedicated his life's work to inspiring people and organizations to work with more vision, passion, positivity, and purpose. He's an author of 22 books. Jon, I'm trying to get to number 2. I think one was really hard. I am amazed and I find it incredible with your productivity. People may be familiar with many of them. Obviously, the Energy Bus, and he did one for kids too. There's like 10 rules in the Energy Bus. I don't know. I picked out one, which is navigate adversity and potholes. I think that's a good one for our days. The Power of Positive Leadership, The Coffee Bean, and a new one, Jon, we're going to establish it as yet a bestseller today. I guess it's released in August. It's called The Garden, which is a spiritual fable about ways to overcome fear, anxiety, and stress. Again, very timely. Jon Gordon.
Donna, great to be with you.
We're not actually at our favorite little place, Bold Bean, but here we are. Love spending time with you. I guess let's just start here. How did you come to this? Like, why is this your work?
That's such a great question because I'm not naturally positive, even though I do this work. I was actually really negative. I'm a pessimistic optimist. I go towards the pessimism first, and then I have to find this eternal ray of hope, this optimism. Years ago, I was struggling. I was very negative and miserable, unhappy, and going through a really tough time. I lost my job during the dot-com crash. So people who are struggling now, I know what that's like because I went through that with myself, my wife, 2 small children. And my wife came up to me. She said, I love you, but I'm not going to spend my life with someone who makes me so miserable. Like, you need to change. And I needed to change. I was 31 years old. I was not mature. I wasn't able to handle all of the pressure and stress. I was crumbling from the inside out. And I remember thinking, okay, I want to be more positive. What am I born to do? Why am I here? And writing and speaking came to me. I don't know why, but it came to me. And it became a calling that I knew this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And I wanted to be more positive. So I started to research all the ways I could be more positive. I started sharing a weekly positive tip. I had 5 subscribers to my newsletter. My mother, my brother, my best friend from college, they were getting the newsletter whether they liked it or not. But slowly people started reading it. And then it led me to start writing books and doing this work.
It's really an incredible story. I mean, we can really kind of tap into the idea that you're crumbling from within. I mean, people now are feeling a lot of crumbles. Um, but the idea that you can positively work your way through that to achieve success is pretty incredible. You are a positivity expert. We're in a time where our positivity is challenged. So tell us, share with us what you're hearing.
Well, first and foremost, it's okay to not be okay. We're going to go through a lot of range of emotions. We're going to go through a lot of feelings during this time. We've been through a lot of feelings, grief and sadness and anger and frustration. You said it earlier. We're going to go through all these different emotions. But when we are feeling those negative emotions, we don't want to stay there too long because it will take us down a spiral staircase of despair. We want to make sure that we can lift ourselves up. We got to feed ourselves each day, so that way we can feed others. The more we do that, the more you feed yourself with positivity, the more you could feed others. And this is not Pollyanna positive. This is not about seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. This is knowing that you have the power to overcome the thorns. This is knowing that pessimists do not change the world. It's the optimists, the believers, the dreamers, the doers, positive leaders like you, Donna, who transforms teams and organizations. I talk about you all the time in my talks. I wrote about you in my book, The Power of Positive Leadership. So this is very real. And this is about overcoming all these challenges and adversities that we are facing right now. And you won't do it by being negative. You won't do it by being pessimistic. We do have to believe that these challenges will be opportunities as we move forward.
Yeah, so I want to dig into that a little bit here, but I also want to say hello to Sasha Simmons. Oh my gosh, she is, talk about an incredibly great motivational speaker, has been with us a lot with our Wow Girls, and Chris Reese. Chris is always with us, and Siobhan Steele, who actually has been at the backbone of Generation W and Wow, and now she's with us. Hey, Siobhan. So, okay, people have to believe they can be positive and change. However, we're living in an environment where our greater culture has told so many people, especially people of color, Black and brown, that their positivity doesn't matter, right? That they are going to be dismissed. And like I said in the beginning, is this time different? And there's such guarded optimism. I talked to a friend of mine the other day. Her mother's 72 years old. And she was sharing with her daughter, I have been through this so many times. I've seen this riot. I've seen this protest. I want to believe, I want to be positive. I am guarded because you don't want to give in to the fact that you could be disappointed again. So how do we balance all of that, John?
It makes sense because it's not just about a positive state of mind. It's about a positive state of action. So positive leadership, positive change happens by action. So we have to do the work that we need to do as a country right now. We've been having the conversations. We understand that there are issues. We have to address the issues, but then we have to actually act to create transformation. And I could see people being frustrated by that or concerned or cautious that we may not act. I do believe this time is different. I believe we will act. And that all starts with a vision. You have to remain optimistic about the vision of where you're going. You have to see it. And if you can see it, you can create it. If you have a vision, you also have the power to make it happen. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream, and we still have to keep on, we're working towards the dream. And it's not happening as fast as it needs to, but you maintain hope alive. Leaders are dealers in hope. And we have to make sure that we're dealing with hope as we move forward towards the future, working together. But I would say that Black lives don't just matter, they significantly matter. They matter very much. So in knowing that, valuing each person, understanding each person, as I said, it's not Pollyanna positive. It's finding the hope, it's finding the love, it's finding the worth in every single person and making sure everything we do reflects that. To me, that is something to hope for. It is something to work for, and it's something we must do to create a better world going forward. You work with teams. I work with a lot of teams. Teams have to have the difficult conversations in order to get better. We have to have serious, difficult conversations right now in order to get better. We don't sugarcoat it. We talk about it. We address it. We heal. You talked about healing earlier. I love that. We heal from it. And then from the healing, we can create a great future together. But we have a collective wound in the soul of our nation that needs to be healed. And it has not been dealt with. But once we deal with it and heal it, that's when we will move forward.
So let me ask you this. You do deal with a lot of teams, and I know that. It's funny, I mentioned to you last night, I hosted a webinar with Coach Bruce Pearl from Auburn. He's their basketball coach, unbelievably successful. And he said, listen, my athletes are 90% African American. He spoke of the injustice that he saw. He speaks of the inequality that he sees. He speaks about the love he has. You have seen many, many teams. What are you hearing from our athletes, from our kids, from our coaches, actually, and from the institutions in which they go?
Well, I just had a great conversation with Doc Rivers the other day, and I have a podcast.
Let everyone know, in case people don't know who Doc Rivers is.
Doc Rivers is the coach of the Los Angeles Clippers. He also won a championship as the head coach of the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
He also was an NBA player for 13 years, very successful, and just a great leader. He's African American, and we had a great conversation about what he's been through in his life. I mean, he's had his house burned down. He's been pulled over numerous times by police officers for no reason. If that's happening to Doc Rivers, it's happening to others. We talked about how do we move forward and address these issues. I've been having a lot of conversations with friends who are Black, and we've had incredible conversations about this. But we've been talking about this for years. Rennie Curran is a former University of Georgia football star. He told me about he was going to speak the night before to an elementary school, and he was driving to the event, and he gets pulled over for no reason and had his car searched. I mean, this is the nicest, greatest guy on the planet. And so you talk to these guys and you understand. So they're frustrated, but at the same time, they're hopeful. They're excited about the change that's coming. They really do like these conversations that are taking place. It's what they want to have happen. It starts there. Emmanuel Acho, who's he's blowing up right now with all of his great content about difficult conversations with a Black man. He and I spoke the night before he actually produced that video. And we had this incredible conversation where he told me a lot of things he shared in that video. And you just learn so much in talking. But he said it starts. I said, where do we start? Like, how do we create change? He said, it starts with the conversation. It starts with the awareness. It starts with the understanding. And once you can understand, then you can actually start to create the change that you understand needs to take place. So what I'm hearing from these athletes is they're very happy that this is happening in a sense of the ability to create change, but they're also wounded. I mean, they're also going through a tough part in their own life and their own journey because they're dealing with all this pain that is surfacing. And people who don't really understand them or the situation, it's hard for them to understand the pain. But when you talk to them, you can really understand the pain they have of years and years of being told you're different, or you are not as worthy, or that you have to have the talk from your family or your parents before you go out, because you have to be told to act differently. Even you're Black, but you have to be told to act differently, or else you might get shot, you might get arrested. So they have all these issues, and I understand it, and I understand their pain, I understand their frustration, I understand their hope. So I'm really hearing hope, pain, frustration, a lot of emotions that are coming to the surface. And it's a historic time, and I think it's a powerful time for change to take place.
So, it's interesting. We have ongoing, and we have forever since we launched Generation W, open conversations about race, equity, all types of people, right? We've talked about LGBTQ, everyone. But right now, a lot of our discussions is, and a lot of friends of mine are like, okay, how do I even jump into this? How am I not looked at as a Johnny or Jane come lately? Am I respected for my opinion? Are people too angry for me? I mean, so the advice to white people, and it's funny, John, last week we had this incredibly emotional conversation where several African-American leaders truly bared their souls. It was very powerful. Yeah. And then we come back, and what we're also hearing is we need, especially white men, I don't know, of positions of influence, to speak up, to say what's important, like you are. But what advice would you give to white people trying to navigate the tough conversations with their Black friends and colleagues, which, by the way, it's not a straight arrow, right? Because everybody's in a different place.
Best thing you can do is be honest, authentic, vulnerable, and say, hey, this is where I am. I don't know what it's like of what you're going through. This is where I grew up. This is how I grew up. And I want to know more, and I want to get better. help me get better, help me understand. And so that I could be better going forward. So I can be someone who is an ally for you, a proponent for you, and be there with you and for you. And so you really are just honest and you say it. And when you come with no pretense and you're just being you and real, they sense that. They know that. That's what I have to do when I go speak to a professional sports team, an NBA team, and they're looking at me like, who is this guy? I have to go in with no agenda, and I'm here just to have a conversation, to help you get better, and for me to get better myself. And when you go in there that way, they sense it, they know it, the realness. And from there, you then listen and you understand. And so it just starts with going and being honest and vulnerable and sharing, this is where I am. And, just help me through this. And they will be more than glad to educate you, to speak to you, and to help you get better.
So this idea of listening and then also searching within yourself. So let's talk about getting us better, because all of your books are filled with the kind of guidance, advice. Your style of writing has a way of really reaching people's not only minds but their hearts, which is I believe the real change organ in our body, right? Because our minds can shut things off, but our hearts will always continue to feel. So you kind of identified top 5 positivity lessons. So why don't we start with the first one, which is positivity is contagious. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we know there are things that are contagious right now that could harm us, but there's also something very positive and very contagious, and it's kindness, it's positivity, it's love, it's joy. So yes, positivity is contagious, and you are contagious in a positive way. So every day you are around people, you could be a germ or a big dose of vitamin C, and your energy is contagious. And so it's understanding that how you show up every day. Leadership is a transfer of belief and energy. So as a leader, you're bringing that positive energy, you're bringing your essence of who you are in the inside to transform the world on the outside. So it starts with understanding that you are contagious. One person I read could actually influence 80,000 people in the course of their life. 80,000, enough to fill a stadium just through normal everyday interactions. Well, if you're contagious and you have an opportunity to even reach more people through speaking or through the work you do in the leadership, think about that. You'll influence several stadiums. So continue to be positive in all that you do.
So I love that, but can I, and I'm sure other people, I have people call me up and say, I just have to talk to you today. I need somebody positive. And I'm like, okay, right. Okay. And yet there are times when I feel, Jon, and I've talked to you a little bit about this. There are times I feel where, okay, am I Pollyanna? Is my positivity being dismissed? Like I'm not seeing the world for what it is. And it becomes a little bit of a weight. It's almost like, I think you used the great thing in the energy bus, which is like those energy vampires.
Yep.
It kind of like, it gets sucked out of you a little bit and you got to like shake it off. And it's a really interesting dynamic when you're filled with this, but people might want to try to drain it.
Gandhi said, I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. And so it's knowing we're always going to be surrounded by negativity and people who don't appreciate your positivity, or they don't think it's real. That's why you have to demonstrate the realness and letting people know that we're not positive because life is easy. We're positive because life is hard. And so my positivity, my optimism is here to make the situation better. But it's also important to be real about the problem you're facing. Confront the reality, difficult reality that you are facing, and then have a vision and a belief of how we're going to get through it. So the other day I shared something positive on Twitter, and someone said, how can you be positive in a moment like this? You're talking about positivity and this has happened. And I responded, I said, no, I understand your challenge and I'm right there with you. And I understand we need to make changes. And I understand that this is a legacy of slavery we have to address, and we have to address the injustice that exists. We have to have criminal justice reform. I understand these things, but the only way to do it is by being positive about the future, believing it can happen. And that person was very, very happy when I responded that way. So I think there's a lot of people that just come out with platitudes and positivity, but it's about understanding the reality, being real about the challenge, but then positive as we move forward and bringing positive, contagious energy to everything we do. But knowing that we will have to overcome all the negativity and pessimism in the world that wants to sabotage us and our movement to create it. So that's the battle that happens all the time between positive and negative as we move forward.
Right. Well, listen, I don't know. I always feel I'm real about the challenge. I truly do believe always we can create change if we really believe in it. We've talked about this. Really
Yeah,
believe this is
what you believe will determine what you create. So it is about that. And just as stars shine the brightest in the darkness, positive people shine the most through adversity. And it is through adversity that we need optimism the most.
right. Because you can, and listen, there's distractions all the time, right? So let's just stay forward, which feeds the next one, number 2, which was feed yourself to feed others. And I guess that's what I've been asking you about in a sense, right? How do you check yourself in order to be, I guess this is the oxygen mask thing as well, right? Make sure you have your own oxygen.
Right. And you have to feed yourself. The best advice I ever heard is from Dr. James Gills, the only person on the planet that completes 6 double Ironman triathlons. That's
Oh my God, that's insane.
double Ironman, which means you're an Ironman. A day later, you do another one. Last time he did it, Don, he was 59 years old, and he was asked how he did it. He said this: I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself. He said, if I listen to myself, I hear all the fear, all the negativity, and all the doubt, and all the reasons why I can't finish this race. But if I talk to myself, I can feed myself with the words and the encouragement that I need to keep on moving forward. And that's what we have to do today. There's so many sources of negativity coming in from the world and also in our own thoughts. And we have to actually always respond with words of truth and encouragement. The word encourage means to put courage into. So when I encourage you, I'm putting courage into you. When I am encouraging myself, I'm putting courage into myself. Talk to yourself more than you're listening to those negative thoughts.
I have to just say, I am a self-talker. And some of the young girls always say, what do you do? I said, I literally talk to myself, even out loud, so I can make sure I really hear it.
The famous singer Jewel said what she does is on the left side of a piece of paper, she writes down all of her negative thoughts that often come in. We often have our patterns of thoughts that are unique to us. You write them down on the left side of a piece of paper. On the right side, you write down the words of encouragement. Truth that you would speak to the lies. You write down those truth that you're going to speak to the lies that are coming in, because those negative thoughts are not true. They are lies. And you write down your truth. And anytime those lies start to come in, you speak truth. It's a great exercise you can do that we can all do. And I do it with a lot of female teams, a lot of male teams, and it's very powerful.
So, all right, John, I'm going to push back here just a little bit. I am with you 100%. I fully believe that change is about positivity and whatever. And as much as there's a point of view right now about inequity and equality, and we're going to talk a little bit about your dad who was a police officer and whatever, there is a whole other group who positively believe that people are less than equal, that people don't deserve to live if they're not, of a certain color or size or sexual orientation, just as devoutly. Now, there is, we talk about a moral high ground, right? When people ask today, is this for real and will it last? Well, it only lasts if we positively believe in our vision and act. You spoke about action, but we can't ignore that there are people who positively believe bad things.
But those people are not very positive, right? They may positively believe it's possible, but I wouldn't say they are positive. If you are going against the ideal that of freedom and equality, we know that Gandhi was actually able to defeat the entire British Empire. One small man was able to defeat the entire British Empire because he stood for freedom and the empire stood for oppression. Oppression was force and freedom is power. Power always will beat force because power is the strength. Force is pushing. And so the ideals that come from core values, that come from something that is a universal truth, that's where the power lies. So I would say you're talking about they're positively, but I would say that's not positive because they're not tapping into something that is power. They're trying to tap into force. But when you respond with power, with freedom and love and joy and real positivity and equality, that's where strength comes from. And let's be real. The United States, right? We are a country that founded on freedom, and yet we had slavery. So from the very beginning, we were actually violating our very core ideal of who we are. And that's why there's a collective wound in the soul of our country.
Right.
And only when we stand for the core values that we truly believe in, that we're founded upon, will we be the strongest nation on earth. only when we do that. So we have to recognize that freedom is who we are, and come to terms that we were actually violating our very core ideal. It's so ironic when you think about it. And
It's
yeah,
tragic when you think about it.
but it's why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. When you invest in the root, you get the fruit. And we have to invest in the root of freedom of our core value in order to get the fruit that we want. Right now, we're experiencing the fruit because of how we did not invest in the root like we should have in the past.
Right. That is amazing. Let me just say hi to everybody who's joined us. This is Refresh. We are with the amazing author, motivational speaker, positivity expert, and and my friend Jon Gordon. I'm so glad that he's here with us today. We also have an amazing leader. We have amazing leaders who have checked in, but an amazing leader. She's at the forefront right now. She happens to be the president of the PGA of America, the largest sporting association in the world. So I think there's 28,000 golf professionals. Her name is Susie Whaley, the first woman ever. And Susie says, I will not let anyone walk through their mind with their dirty feet, Gandhi. She said, I needed that so badly today. Thank you. We are not Pollyanna. We just know we can do better. I love that we have leaders sharing these ideas and refreshing our spirits. And Susie, we love you and your leadership. And thank you for being here. And then we want to say hello to Andrea Mail and Holly. And okay, here's another question. I'm a person that faces life with positivity and action, but how do we combat hate in other people's hearts? I know myself, I've grown in my mindset, but how does this translate to such ingrained hate?
That's the difficult question that we have to face as a country, because no matter how much we are about positivity and love, there'll be people that are all about hate. We have to understand that racism is an expression of evil, that evil exists, and racism is an expression of that. And so this is a battle of good versus evil. And so what do you do with evil? You keep on bringing good and love and light. That's all you can do, because love eventually wins. Love conquers hate. Love overcomes fear. Love casts out fear. And so the more we bring love to the situation, and realness and unity and oneness, and have conversations one heart at a time, that's how we'll make a difference. That's how we'll make an impact. But you can't drive anyone else's bus. Something I wrote from the energy bus, right? You can't drive anyone else's bus. You can only drive your bus, but you can show other people what a bus looks like, that loves, that is passionate, that brings joy to situations, that brings love to situations. But at the same time, you could also be contagious in a positive way and share that. I think that's what's happening now. I think we are starting to see people share more and more positive, contagious energy. Will we ever root it out completely? No, because you will never get rid of evil completely. It will always exist. It always takes up different forms. We had, I'm Jewish, right? And so, my grandmother left Austria to escape the Holocaust. And so many of my people were killed, right? And we saw evil. Nazis, right? We saw that happen. And yet Nazism still exists to this day. And so we defeated one place, but it rose up in another. There's terrorists, and we defeat a terrorist cell, a movement, and then it uprises in another place. So we will defeat it in many ways now and still come up. And we have to understand that. That doesn't mean we should get down. We fight the good fight. And we continue to do our part every day to bring social justice, to bring love in our situations. And the more that we're doing that, that's my job. And that's your job. That's all of our job. That's what I see, what I am passionate about every day. The more we can do this and more we can spread it and share it, one person at a time, we're going to have an impact over time, especially with the next generation. That's the impact we can have. We really can transform the hearts and the minds of the next generation. And that's, we're going to have a huge impact. So that's what we're about. Don't get discouraged. We don't give up because it's hard. We give up because we get discouraged.
Okay, well, that brings, actually, that's a great lead into number 3, right? We're positive, not because life is easy, but because it's hard.
Yeah. And so by staying positive through the difficult times, through the challenges, we find ways to overcome. Many are going through the coronavirus challenges right now with their business and their life and their family. We have to understand that as well. So it is hard for a lot of people right now. It was hard for me early on when 90% of my business was being canceled from the virus, from all the events being canceled. So I'm thinking personally, what am I going to do? What does my future look like? And I knew in that moment, I had to stay positive through it for myself, my wife, my family, my team. Because at first I was getting rocked. Like the situation did rock me. I want to be very honest. But I said to myself, is this going to allow me to create my future? Is this going to allow me to be my best for others right now, to lift others up? And I knew I had to change right there. And here was my mindset. Win today. Yes, it's hard, but win today. And then tomorrow, win the next day and win the day after that. And if we win each day, we will win the future. But our job is to win every day through the challenging times.
Right. So Rachel asked that question, and the fact that she asked is because I think we're talking about it, but I understand. So she leads a not-for-profit here in town. She's amazing. And she says, for those of us who are naturally inclined toward positivity, but finding ourselves emotionally drained in this current moment. And I'll tell you, after last week's refresh, I was emotionally drained. I was encouraged. I was refreshed in an interesting way, but like she says, drained. What advice do you have for us as we act on the things we care about and look to take care of ourselves at the same time? So, our energy reserves are being tested.
Yeah. And it's an emotional time. And I would say that there are 5 Ds that you have to be on the lookout for that will drain your energy. And they are doubt, distortion, lies, which we talked about earlier, discouragement, distractions, and division. And the word anxious literally means divided. And so when we feel anxious, we feel divided. And so a lot of us through everything that's going on are feeling divided. So what do? We trust instead of doubt, and that trust brings more peace. Instead of the distortion, the lies, we speak truth, words of encouragement. Instead of discourage, we encourage. So we encourage ourselves each day. We feed ourselves with positivity, whether it's gratitude or prayer or meditation. For me, I take a gratitude walk each morning. And while I'm walking, I just say what I'm thankful for. And the research shows you can't be stressed and thankful at the same time. So if you're feeling grateful, if you're feeling blessed, you won't feel stressed. And that is such an amazing boost. I get back to my office and I've created a fertile mind that's ready for great things to happen. I flood my brain and body with positive emotions that uplift me rather than the stress hormones that slowly drain and kill me. So a gratitude practice, a positivity practice is important each day to do that. Instead of the distractions I just mentioned, we focus on what matters most. And what is that? It's love. It's relationship. So it's getting with people and it's having these conversations and it's nourishing each other and being nourished by others. So through relationships, we are better together. And then together we accomplish amazing things. Instead of division, there's unity. And so when we feel divided, we unite back to self. Meditation, prayer, and so forth is how we unite back to self. Yoga, unite back to self, but also unite with others. And the more we unite with others, we will then energize each other's. And that's why it's so great you do refresh, right? We're refreshing each other during this time. So understand the 5 Ds and then counter them and start to be aware of the 5 Ds. These are in my book, The Garden, that comes out at the end of June, actually, end of June. So I wrote about these 5 Ds and how to overcome them. And that's how we overcome fear, stress, and anxiety. So I share the battle we face and how to overcome the battle to win it. And so many are facing a battle right now.
Totally. So it's perfectly timely, and we should make it a bestseller right now. So the 5 Ds are doubt, distortion, discouragement, distraction, and divisions.
Yep.
All right, and that's how we need to overcome all that. Which is, by the way, all of this will. Even though and you're right, even though you can take on 2 or 3 in one day and you got it, they can still come back. So you do have to practice. You create these practices. I'm learning so much, Jon. Okay, number 4 in our positivity priorities. Optimism is a competitive advantage.
As I said earlier, pessimists do not change the world. And so Duke University did a study on optimists, and they found they worked harder, got paid more, and were more likely to succeed in business and sports.
Wow.
And what they found was that the optimists, because they believed in a brighter and better future, they then took the actions necessary to create it. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's so funny because the researchers use the term deluded, that they deluded themselves into believing it was possible. And sometimes people say, oh, you're crazy, Donna. There's no way you're going to be able to turn around the WNBA. There's no way you're going to be able to create a movement of Generation W and do what you do. And people will doubt you and they won't believe it. And yet they think you're being delusional. And you say, no, I have this belief. And because you believe it, you then take the actions necessary to create it. So what we believe determines what we create. And it is a competitive advantage. It's so funny. A few years ago, I got called by Emmett Spiegel, the founder and chairman of Snapchat. And he had read my book, The Power of Positive Leadership. He said, will you come speak to my leadership team? So I met with his leadership team. And right before I was going to speak to him, I said, what do you want me to talk about? The cost benefits analysis of being positive. You want me to share the research and the data because these are such smart people. And he said, Jon, just help us stay positive. We're getting destroyed by Instagram. The media is giving us a hard time. Wall Street's giving us a hard time. Everyone on the inside is focused on negativity. I told him you create from the inside out, control what you can control, stay positive, shared all these principles. That's what they've done over the last few years. Evan talked about in a recent article about how positivity has been a game changer. Optimism has been a game changer for their business, their growth, and they've had a lot of success the last 2 years. They were allowing the negativity to creep in and to beat them from outside in. They started to focus on creating success from the inside out. And that's what we're talking about. Optimism is a competitive advantage.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. As you know, we do a lot of work specifically on gender, but it's all about community. And our mission, our vision is really to elevate the human spirit, elevates us all. But when there's real structural inequities, so I'm going to use a thing about women, right? There's like 50 Fortune 500 women CEOs, right? Board seats are starting to change, right? It's happening so slowly, but when you have generation after generation are facing such structural inequities, if we look at African Americans, the economic inequities. Now, as an individual, you can come, I positively know I can do it. There are very people who are successful, but it seems to me that we are now looking at a more collective positivity in the change that we can bring together. Everyone has to be individually positive, yes, but we have to believe we can do this together. I mean, right? It's almost like being if you're going to tell me as a point guard, Donna, shooting guard, you have to believe you're going to hit every shot. Jon, no problem. I got you. But I have to also believe that my team has the capability to be successful. Is that a distinction here?
Yeah, no one creates success alone. We do it together. And how do we do that? By trusting other people and in their leadership, and by investing in people, just like you're investing in women in leadership. For me, like every leader of my company is actually a woman, is a female. And
well,
so
that
we have
explains everything. Okay,
yeah,
I got that.
that's why we're doing so phenomenal.
So well. Okay.
And they are amazing and strong. Julie Nee is our head of training. Amy Kelly's our head of consulting. And it's amazing. Like, and during this time, Amy's been having team meetings, bringing all of the consultants and trainers together for gatherings and meetings. And it's been incredible. Like, so I think what you see, and you see it, like it has to be a collective effort to do it together. And we have to make sure that we are putting a focus on it. So whether it's women equality or racial equality, we have to make sure that it's a priority. We have to invest in it. We have to talk about it and put all the resources towards it, towards growth, towards training, towards development, towards opportunities. And we have to create the environment. See, that's where I believe a lot of people succeed despite the environment. So there's a lot of success right now, despite the environment that we have. When you go to communities that are low-income communities, that are primarily Black communities, you'll talk to friends. They say it's hard to make it out of there, but many of them do, but many don't. We have to create an environment where more people have the opportunity to make it out, and the environment is conducive to success. And we have to do the same thing with promoting females in leadership.
Yes, I totally agree. Now, you grew up in. Oh, it's funny. You're a Long Island kid.
Strong Island.
You're a Long Island kid.
Long Island, New York, Smithtown, and I moved to Atlanta when I was 22, and so now I've been in the South longer than I've been in the North.
Right, I have too, but we bring both sensibilities right to the table every day. Like yeah. I really do believe, like your fundamental years, that those things just start with you. You know what I mean? Definitely.
And my dad was a New York City police officer. He passed away a few years ago, but in all of this discussion that's going on around the country, I understand, you know, a lot of point of views with this, because my dad was a New York City cop, and I understand what it's like from his perspective as well.
Should we ask what his perspective was? And does it, and do you see?
It's not his perspective. It's more so my dad was fighting crime every day on the streets of New York. He was an undercover narcotics agent. So he's battling the drug cartels. He's battling drugs. He's implementing the policy that his bosses want him to implement of what he has to do every day. So he's on the streets every day fighting crime. He's battling for his own survival and for his life. And he saw the world. I remember growing up, he saw the world as out to get him. And so he had to take on this world because the world is out to get you. So you have to come at the world. And you make one mistake and you're dead. You make one mistake towards another person and they're dead. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of fear there. It's a hard job to do. I'm not justifying any bad actions. There is evil in everything. And there are mistakes that are made. I'm not saying this was a mistake. There's both though. You have mistakes and then you have evil. And my dad will tell you that, you'll have bad and you'll also have people that make mistakes. And so I've had a lot of police chiefs reach out to me over the years wanting more positivity in their police departments because they struggle so much with narrow-minded negativity. They have such a narrow, skewed view of the world. And so that's why training is going to be so important moving forward, and education and helping them be the best. Right now, there's this big argument about funding and defunding police. I think that's the wrong argument. The best argument needs to be, or the best question needs to be, how do we get better? How do we make them better? How do we implement models that work? How do we take best practices that are happening already in communities and cities around the country and implement those everywhere? And if you do that, like my friend Q Williams, what he does, he's a former FBI agent, federal prosecutor. He actually works with police departments and communities, and he brings them together to work together and to communicate. If we can do that, that's how we'll see change from that standpoint.
Well, it's interesting. I think I think what I hear you saying, and words really matter. And I think the debate always happens. There's flash words and people respond to them. But there's this broader thing. You said something very interesting about your dad. And it's something I've heard from police officers who I'm friends with, which is we put on this armor every day. They put on 14 pounds before they ever walk out of the house. And if we look at everyone as criminals, then you're always on the defensive. And that's part of the issue, right? That creates this hostility right from the outset.
Yep.
And that's why when we talk about whether it's defunding or changing, we have to change the culture around the whole paradigm in order for us to get there. Because if you're looking at the people you're supposed to protect fundamentally as criminals, and I don't know if anyone's seen, I think a lot of our viewers have it, I don't know if you have, John, but Ava DuVernay's documentary, 13th.
I saw it.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
And as she pulls the threads and teaches all of us about how we are looked at, how we look at criminals or criminalizing the population, so much so that the population itself buys into it, right? I want to be positive, but everything around me is telling me I am a criminal in some way. You know what? It is really tough. And what you're saying to us is we can change our viewpoint, but we also know that we need the power of positive thinking to know we can change more, that the power of that can change the structural things that got us there in the first place.
Very much so. I'm a believer in massive investment in Black communities, massive investment in Head Start programs, pre-start programs, community gardens, and these police partnerships with communities where they have partnerships and they come together, and mentorship programs, and truly investing in the communities. We need to pour a ton of money and resources into that. Smart money, though, to do it the right way. And with those solutions, we'll see a change. And criminal justice reform, where we no longer are criminalizing all of these small crimes that put them into a system that is so hard to get out of. Donna, my wife got arrested, and it's a funny story, but it's a real story, in LaGuardia Airport, because she had a lipstick taser that she carries when she's walking around, an area by herself for protection. She left it in her purse. And so they literally came to her during the screening. They found it. And instead of just saying, here, we'll take it, they literally put her in jail. And was going to put her in the Queens jail and everything else. And I was flying somewhere else, but before I got on the plane, she called me. I canceled my engagement, and my next mission was to get my wife out of jail.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, literally get my wife out of jail. It's a long story, but the point is, when she was sitting in jail, she immediately started to feel like a criminal. and she felt like she had done something like majorly wrong when she really didn't. And she, all of a sudden, she understood the mindset of when someone gets arrested, and they were treating her like a criminal. And I can see these young men getting brought into jail and be put into the system. And what happens when they do that? We had a really good understanding of what my wife went through. And I was able to, through several relationships and calls and so forth. And I thought, if she was a different color, if she was a different color, if she was a young male, there's no way that,
That's right.
there's no
That's
way I
right.
would have got her out. We were able to get her out that night. We had to come back for, where she got probation, 6 months probation and all that. We had to come back for that. But with all that said, if that was someone else, they would have been in jail probably till Wednesday, and then finally arraigned. And next thing you know, into the system. And once you're in the system, it's hard to get out. And that's why we need reform. I saw right then and there, we need reform. It was a huge eye opener after seeing also the great documentary, The 13th.
Right. It's amazing. Our system is gutted with people who don't deserve to be there. We have mental health issues, right? All of these things just stack up, and they are screaming at us. They've been screaming at us for a long time, but we are collectively hearing people in power can't turn their heads. People of all color are joining hands. Yes, you see that, like, that fills me with hope, and it does fill me with optimism that this can be that point.
I'm
Even
only
if
smiling because I'm smiling because your dog came and sat behind you. So cute.
well, because they're all in. The dogs are all in. They're always
Going
with.
back, I do have hope. You know what? It's the only way to live, because even when we're looking at challenges and injustices, and I look at my own life, even when I had so many challenges and it didn't look like I was going to make it as a speaker, and my book I wrote was rejected by 30 publishers. I was told it's not going to happen, but I couldn't accept that. I had to keep moving forward. And I believe it's the only way that we'll ever accomplish anything. We can't give up. I think the fight is too important. I think the matter and the issue is something that is so significant in our world, in our country, of who we are, that we don't give up. And I think this goes to many different issues. We're talking about women equality as well, and women in leadership. That is a huge issue too. Like, so it's not like one issue is more important than the other. I think it's all important. It's all about equality. It's all about growth. It's all about recognizing the value and
Of
the
each
dignity
individual.
and the worth of each
Individual.
person.
So I have to, like, I have to, we're going to have to wrap up soon, but this really leads us to the fifth point, which was how you see the world determines the world you see. Right? How you see the world determines the world you see and how the world sees you, right? So we're talking about, right, young African American men being seen as criminal in disproportionately egregious numbers. And guess what? After a while, that's how they're seen. That's how all the systems look at them. And then that's how they begin to see themselves. I don't know. I also watched Just Mercy as well. I am a huge Bryan Stevenson fan. Also read about Roy Hinton. And when he gave his closing arguments, and I'm saying this because I'm hoping anyone who can listen who has interested in following up on our website, we also have materials and readings. I'm finding them everywhere. Everyone's contributing. But he spoke about this case, which was against, it was, they put a man in jail for murder, a case he didn't do, and he's on death row. And he said, this isn't just about this one man, right? This is about the 20 members of his family who testified that he was there with them and we don't believe them. It's about a system where we've shown the case doesn't even have merit and yet we're still progressing. It's about the destruction of families over generations, over belief systems over generations. And we are now uniquely, positively positioned to actually write all that, Jon, And so I love number 5 because it is so powerful.
And how you see the world determines the world that you see. So do we see a world that can change, that could be better? Do we see the good in people, or do we see the negative? I do want people to understand, when we watch the news, we're only seeing a small part of the world. We're not seeing all of the love and all the great interactions that are happening right now with police officers. There's a lot of bad being put out there, but there's also a lot of great ones that are saving lives every day and doing amazing work and risking their lives and being selfless. But you're just not seeing the videos of that. You're seeing the bad things. So all of a sudden, your mind starts to go towards the negative. When we watch the news, we may see news of people who are being killed every day. So we're always assuming that the world is very negative and full of that. How we see the world determines the world we see. When my dad retired, he changed amazingly. Like, I saw him change so much when he was no longer in the fight. as a young man, he and my wife, my mom almost got divorced because, again, he had so many issues. And then he comes out, he became a different person, had a different perspective, started to see the world differently. And that could be for all of us. We can all change our perspective. And when we do, we can go from negative to positive. We can go from hopeless to hopeful. We can go from fearful to faithful. And I know, I'm just going to say it on my own. I'm fearful. With God, I'm faithful. And so for me, my faith has changed me a lot in my perspective of how I see the world. And it's how I see the good and how I'll continue to fight for the good.
Well, it's interesting. China Jude, who is, I guess, the associate athletic director at the University of Wyoming. I always tease her because well, never mind. She is fantastic, and she is watching, and she says, change is hard. How do you educate without overwhelming white people? Now, she is an African-American woman in a NCAA system that does not have, right? So we have the University of Virginia has an African-American woman athletic director. We have now the newly named Vanderbilt African-American women, right? We're starting to count, right? And that was a big thing. Like, when are we going to start to count? China and I used to talk about this a lot. But she is concerned about, like, how do you without overwhelming the people that we need, which is the majority of people, to buy in.
I think it's important that you start with emotion first, because through the heart, it really does start in the heart. So we have to start with the heart and helping people understand the issue and make them feel from the heart. And then after that, it's an education process. And you don't train everything at once. When you go through a training, you don't train everything at once. So you gradually introduce one topic at a time. I think it's important to do it over time. Mm-hmm. And then allow people to be able to implement what they learn. So they see it, they learn it, and then they're able to do it. And you do it over time. But we have to take these complex issues, which is what I love to do, take complex issues and really simplify it for people, help them understand in a very teachable way. And the more we can do that, then we can help them take action. So you're not going to overwhelm them if you break it down like you would any teaching or in any class, but we have to do it. We have to make it part of our training and our overall learning process.
So John, Sherry, if you want to just put up one more time, anyone wants to take a screen of this. I think this is so powerful in terms of thinking about positivity, the idea that it's contagious, that we have to feed ourselves to feed others, that we are positive not because life is easy, we are positive because life can be hard, and life is really hard right now. And we have to be positive as we approach it if we're going to create the impact we have. And I will tell you, at least 3 or 4 times a day, I get either an email or a text or a phone call that says, well, I hope this is really different. And I want to say, and I do, it's more than hope. We can make it different. We have to be positive about the difference we can make if it's going to be different. Optimism is a competitive advantage, honestly. I don't know why I think of Nelson Mandela often. I think he had this overriding optimism. It's incredible. I think of many people like him. I think about our own Dr. Edie, who spoke at Gen W last year, who was going to be back with us this year. People who have experienced extreme, beyond understanding hardships. And that, in addition to the everyday microaggressions and macroaggressions that we feel. So I do think it's a competitive advantage. And lastly, how you see the world determines the world you see, and how the world sees you, incredibly powerful, which is why we have to change how the world sees us and the world that we're in, that we're seeing. So I'm hoping that people post some of their thoughts and reactions, how this impacts you. John, any closing comments that you'd like to share?
I want to thank you, Donna. I think we went really deep, which is important. we didn't stay surface level. We stayed, we went deep, and you have to have these difficult conversations in order to grow. As a team, you have to come together through 4 C's: communication, connection, commitment, and caring. So we have to communicate, because where there's avoiding communication, negativity will fill it. So when I work with teams, we talk about making sure we're filling the void and don't allowing those voids to breed and grow. So communicate. We have to connect. We have to really come together and connect and have meaningful, vulnerable conversations that allow us to connect at a deeper level to create emotional and psychological safety. And when you are connected, you then become more committed. So we have to have commitment, but you'll never have commitment without connection. So it's the connection that breeds the commitment. And so right now, I believe we're connecting more, but we have to do more of it. And we have to commit to each other. You don't have to be great to serve, but you have to serve to be great. So we all have to decide how we're going to serve to change the world, to be great in the eyes of others. Only through service and sacrifice do you become great in the eyes of others. And it's going to require a service and sacrifice on our part. So each person has to pick what they're going to do. I'm going to invest in education. I'm going to invest in the youth. I just yesterday wrote a check to a school in Atlanta. It's a school that is a all black school, pretty much of young kids, elementary. And I was asked to invest. I'm going to invest in that school and start there with those kids. Last couple of years, I've funded a school in the South Bronx, and it's an after-school program. Did it with Josh McCown, the quarterback, and Anthony Barr, who played at UCLA football. Us three went in and funded actually the school for 2 years. So for me, it's schools. I'm not a lawyer. I know the criminal justice system needs to be reformed, but my expertise is not going to be able to do that. I can talk about it, but I can't do it. But what I can do? I can invest in education. So find how you will commit, and then finally show you care. And when you care, that's how you're going to actually create change. Because if you care, you'll do more, give more, and become more. In the world, a lot of people don't care. But when you do care, you will truly stand out. And that's how you'll make an impact. So do we want to just go through the motions? Or do we want to create a masterpiece? Caring is the difference.
Caring is the difference. So from Lisa Shallot, she says, this was fantastic and actionable conversation. Thank you so much. I, of course, say thank you so much. I think our whole team says thank you so much. You don't have to be great to serve, but if you serve, you need to serve to be great.
Yep.
I think that's a great one to leave us with. So let me say thank you for that. And I'm definitely booking another session at Bold Bean. We'll be 6 feet apart. I will take off my mask to have my chai latte, and you have whatever you want. Next week on Refresh, we'll resume our mini series. Let's talk, let's listen, let's heal. With the heretofore, with the resounding focus on mental health, we'll be joined by 2 mental health professionals. One of them you've known and have already connected with if you've been with us before. Her name is Jamie Olkin. She's a New York City mental health professional on the front lines up there in probably, yes, the most impacted city in our country. And she'll be joined by Dr. Richard Wynn, who we recently met, a licensed mental health counselor, a professor at the University of North Florida. Dr. Wynn embraces culture-centered approaches to teaching and research and counseling. His research, I love this, his research, but I can't say it. His research focuses on identity and traumatic stress with an emphasis on marginalized social identity groups. Wonderful man. Thank you, everyone. Love your comments along the way. And of course, the entire Generation W team, who, yes, I am committed to every single day. Sherry, our producers, Stacy, Jamie, Kasha, Christina, Tara, Elizabeth, and Ruth. To all of you for joining, please keep spreading the word that there is a place to refresh in the world. And by all means, stay in touch. Please, if you don't already, subscribe to our newsletter at genwnow.com and follow our social, right? Our community, as John said, is better together, stronger together. We need to communicate, we need to connect, we need to care about each other, which we absolutely do, because together we are powerful, together we are not alone, and together we get to serve, which makes us great. Thank you, Jon Gordon. Really appreciate and love you. Bye, everyone.
Love you, Donna. Thank you. Shout out to your mom.
Oh my gosh, we didn't say hello to my mom. Hi, Mom.
We love you, Mom.
We do. Thank you, Mom.